Sure, I can do, yeah. So apologies from David Turner, who was due to be here. Unfortunately, you've got me instead. So I've been around with Interop since the beginning, and certainly since all the hacks which NHSX can sponsor. So this is our second virtual hack, isn't it, Helen?
Yeah.
Well, which on the one hand I think it's worked really, really well. On the one hand, it's a shame we can't all get together. I remember we were at the Leeds hack. We filled the ODI and then some, which was really great. But again, it's good to see kind of over 100 people kind of taking 2 days out from the jobs to join things like this from across a range of suppliers and provider organisations as well. So I think one of the things that we looked at previously, we did a lot of clinical focus on all probably the previous hacks, with a couple of exceptions around things like NHS login. But it's really good. I think we do want to look at the full range of systems. So whether that's administrative systems, like HR, workforce type systems, or whether it's something like the identity, which spreads across all the systems as well. So we're really keen to make sure we're not just focusing on a few of the problems around the clinical, but generally around things that work across the piece. I think within that, the identity stuff is kind of around getting all of the systems to talk together, not only within a hospital around systems for things like rostering, employment, learning management, access to clinical systems, all of those, but as well how that relates to local, regional, and national. What we don't want is a log-on for every system locally, a log-on for regional systems like Lycra sites, and then log-ons for separate national systems, whether they're hosted by NHS Digital or NHS England or any of the other ALBs. So I guess ultimately we'd like to have that kind of consistent single sign-on across all of them, and how we do that, I think this is a big part of that. One of the things that we'll be looking, particularly this hack now, but also generally on the hacks. So David is really keen to see that we have a path from hacks into live implementation. So great things happen at the hacks in a relatively short space of time compared to probably normal development cycles. So how do we leverage some of that and get some of the functionality out? For it's not just part of a hack that we're kind of testing it around, but actually how do we take that right out into live systems, and what is the path? So I think there are a couple of things that we'd like to follow up, certainly in general from these hacks. One is to understand what the path from hack to implementation looks like, and then how, as NHSX and with Interopen, we can support that path. And we have a skunkworks within NHSX now as well, which is really keen to start working with people as well around some particular problems. But we'd be really keen to understand how people think we could support them in taking things through to implementation, whether working with individual suppliers or whether it's something that needs to happen on national systems to help that. We'd be really interested to know. And we'd also like to probably follow up from maybe starting from this hack with maybe a couple of case studies about where people have taken the hack and what they've learned, and they've taken that back into a system as well. So kind of not, the hack, I think someone's probably already said, they always say the hack doesn't end today. Everyone's going to carry on working on these things, but just not necessarily all together like this. So we would be really keen to follow up with that via Interopen as well. And I think just lastly around hacks in general, not specifically around this one. So we are really keen to carry on supporting the hacks. So I think we've been doing these. What number is this, Helen? 6 or 7?
Yeah, I think this is 6. This is number 6.
Yeah, so I think we've already agreed kind of to another 2 for this financial year, but we definitely like to pull together a schedule for those to be held regularly, perhaps a little bit easier when we're doing virtual, a little bit easier to organise and to attend. So we would like kind of, I guess, call again for ideas on what we want to see in future hacks, so that we can start as a community to vote on those as we go forward. Yeah, so that's something from me.
Wonderful, thanks, Ian. Yes, if you have ideas for future hacks, let us know. Get in touch. put out a comment on River. We have got a survey. I'll send a link out to our hack survey. You'll also be getting a feedback questionnaire after this, and your suggestions are very welcome there as well. Okay, so we're slightly ahead of time, which is wonderful. I think most people are here now. So if Andrew Temple, if you're ready, to sort of start introducing, I'll just quickly, I'll share a link to the running order again. Here it is on my screen.
Just
and I'll
before you
share
do,
a link
Helen,
to this again.
I've just signed up for Slido, but there's nothing anywhere that I can see that tells me what meeting I need to be in or anything like that to vote for various things.
Yeah, no, that's fine, John. And that's because it's not set up yet. It's not live yet. We haven't made it live until the end, because what I really want you to do is just focus on the hack. You shouldn't really be voting until you've seen them. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay,
So
but I'll let you know when they're live. You'll get plenty of notice. But we'll just send out the code and things once.
Quick one on housekeeping. Helen, people are trying to get in. Are there any?
Yeah, Helen, Melanie's trying to get in. Helen.
Okay. Right. Well, she's not sitting as waiting.
Oh.
Sorry.
I'll send her the link. She might be trying to get into a Teams call.
She might have, or yesterday's or something. Yeah. Okay.
Right. There's someone called James Shields. I don't know James Shields, or if anyone knows him, but he keeps trying to enter and he keeps falling off. So if anyone knows him directly, if you could contact him and maybe send him an alternative link, or I don't know, maybe ask him to use a different device. That might help. And as we're on the housekeeping, I was just going to say, before we kick off with the presentations, have a little piece of paper or a note or somewhere you can scribble on your computer handy for the names of the presentations that you like best, because it might turn into a bit of a blur. So it's always good to have that handy. I will post again a list of the running order as well. Okay, so Andrew, Melanie's here, and so are a couple of other people. Perfect. So if you want to kick off, that'd be great. All right.
Okay, yeah, so I'm Andrew Temple. I'm a project manager at Blackpool Teaching Hospitals. So I'm just going to introduce the collaborative banked hack, or hacks. So I've spent most of my time in this hack space today, listening in and sort of trying to contribute where I can. It's my first hack and it's virtual. There's been some really good debates and collaborations happening between the teams. So yeah, how this came about sort of earlier on today, we were having a conversation, and we realised that this use case, like the others, it's really big, and it could be a hack on its own. So several hack teams have come out of this area, and we thought it was probably a better idea to approach this by giving you a bit of context by sort of sequencing these sort of interrelated hacks into one journey, to tell a bit of a story. So I don't know if this method will work. It might be a bit clunky, and I'm sure there will be overlaps. But yeah, I'll start with giving you a brief overview of the journey that we're going to do shortly. It does seem simple on the face of it, but there are actually, several moving components, and all of them need to operate, to make this as efficient as possible, and for trusts and patients to reap the benefits. Trusts need to onboard doctors at the moment using a blend of digital and paper documentation for ID training, DBS, all the rest that I'm sure you'll be aware of. There's different providers at different trusts of bank software. They all use different clinical systems, and all of which you need to access local, regional, and national systems. So I'll just give you a brief sort of verbal overview of the rough flow that this is going to follow. So we're going to focus on a doctor called Manny. Some of you might know why we're doing that. He's a doctor at a certain grade and a certain specialty. He works at Blackpool Teaching Hospitals, and he just wants to do some extra shifts in his collaborative bank. So, the hackers are going to demonstrate within their own sort of hack teams. Manny's going to join a collaborative bank. He's going to view a vacancy that's been posted by an administrator in another hospital. I think she's called Paula. Please correct me if I'm wrong. That's going to be East Lancs Teaching Hospitals. This could work in any of the other sort of regions. We're just using these names as examples. The Manny's able to browse shifts in that collaborative bank, and then book a shift. So he's going to do that at East Lancs. So then, obviously, once you've booked your shift, you need to have all your identity verified. You need to have all of your accounts provisioned. All of the standard checks, and then the accounts aren't just for East Lancs. You need your local, regional, national accounts provision. For example, shared care record and so on and so forth. And then ultimately, the clinician then presents either on the ward, in the acute setting, and I think the other example we're going to look at is in a GP practice as well. So we're not just focused on the acute setting as well. So the first section, again, there might be some overlap on this. Please bear with me. I'm going to hand over to Anas and Omar. I think they're a hack team who's going to talk about the initial sort of joining of a collaborative bank.
Thank you, Andrew. And if it's okay, can I start sharing my screen with everyone? Is that okay, Helen?
You should be able to, yeah. If you just...
Can you see my screen? I'm basically...
Yeah, do you want to put it in present mode so that it's a bit bigger? That's great,
Perfect.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Andrew. Really helpful kind of introduction. Just by way of introduction about myself, if I haven't met some of you yet, my name is Anas. I am the CEO and one of the co-founders of Patchwork Health. I'm also an A&E doctor by background. So I know all about the challenges that can be faced by doctors rotating through the system from personal experience. I think in the context of what we want to talk about today, the main use case is primarily around the collaborative banks that Patchwork Health has been putting together with many different regions across the country. Bear with us, this was obviously a very rushed, short period hack, and we are the first to go today, so that puts a bit of pressure on being the first presenter. But to kind of cover the overall use case, it's about authenticating a clinician to join a collaborative bank to enable them to book a shift across multiple types of employers. That could be across an ICS or a region. It could be a group of acute trusts, a group of different kinds of trusts, such as acute and mental health and community, or even primary care. The theme is collaborative banks. The vendors, ICS, we're looking at how the Evernham wallet could work with Patchwork Health's deployment platform, workforce deployment platform. And I'll be joined later on with Hank, one of our engineers who's participating in the hack today. And Omar is with us today as well for any discussions later on. Ultimately, the benefit from introducing that kind of passporting into our collab bank is to ensure that there is time saving into trying to onboard hundreds, if not thousands of workers into a collab bank, assured compliance with a trusted process, and of course, ultimately interoperability and the goal of a collaborative bank, which is reducing agency spend. I just want to go over a quick diagram of the patchwork world as it exists today and why this is really exciting for us to be working with a technology of this sort and a process that involves digital passporting on the back of Evernham's wallet. This is an example of a collaborative bank we're about to go live in the next few weeks. And that's the Doctor in Training Collaborative Bank in the Northwest of England, with St. Helens being the lead employer. Now, if I bring your attention to the right side of the screen, each one of those 5 trusts, which will eventually can be up to 35 NHS trusts in the region, will have their own local setup for local banks. Some of them use Patchwork's bank solution for their local bank, like Liverpool University Hospital, Southport, and St. Helens. Others use Allocate, and quite a few of them use Allocate for their local bank. And some, like Wrightington, Wigan, and Lee, actually have a managed service with their own solution. All of these trusts need to be interoperable with Patchwork's collaborative bank solution, which they are. And then once they're interoperable, that way shifts can be cascaded from the local bank, whichever system they're using, into the collaborative bank to enable workers to be able to book these shifts. However, the challenge today is these workers are onboarded to the collaborative bank on the back of two kind of old world way of doing things. Two policies. The first one is an MOU, a memorandum of understanding that all the HR directors and medical directors of these trusts had to sign to agree that we trust each other's checks. If one trust done the checks on the clinician and onboarding them to their local bank, they are now approved for that bank, usually the lead employer. The second thing is that on the app, on Patchwork's app itself, we ask doctors to sign a data sharing agreement. It's kind of like an agreement to join the collaborative bank, allowing other trusts who are not their lead employer to view their information.
Anna, sorry, quickly, you've already gone over time, so if you could move on as quickly as possible onto the demo, I'll give you an extra couple of minutes because Andrew gave his introduction.
Apologies.
So
all right, we'll rush through this.
Great.
Credentialing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just had to set the context and to appreciate the scope of the challenge. The credentialing piece will allow us to build that trust in the system and bypass the need to onboard them manually every single time. And allows the clinician to upload their credentials as well as the local banks to upload credentials. I will hand now over to Hank, who's going to show us in a sandbox environment some of the work he's done today. Hank, off to you.
Hi, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Hi, sorry, yeah, this is going to be really rushed, guys, so I'll talk as fast as I can. So this is using the Eminem sandbox. What you'll see on the left-hand side here is what it will look like when it's the Patchwork Hub, when it's styled. Thanks to the Eminem guys for helping us with this today. And on the right-hand side, what this will be the Patchwork Hub. So essentially, there's 3 steps in getting through the process of joining the collab bank as Anas described. So for the Patchwork worker, they have a Patchwork digital wallet underpinned by Eminem's technology. So essentially on the left-hand side here, so it's just a recording. I'm just going to show you guys functionally how it works. So the videos might be at different points, but essentially you have a QR code. The worker then scans that. Sorry, it's quite wobbly video there. So they'll connect. So you establish that connection, and you set up the digital wallet for the Patchwork worker. The second step is for a trusted authority to issue the credential, and this could be either the primary trust or this could be the lead employer in the collab bank model. So I'm just going to skip through here. So you issue the credential here. Okay, you set that up, ManyHack, and then you issue the credential, and then on the app they should receive a notification, something like this, and they say, okay, I am ManyHack with all of these details, and they accept. And then lastly, any other collab banks or any other trust or hospitals within that collab bank framework can also request a proof to say, okay, ManyHack, can you please send me your information? So I'm just going to skip through really quickly here. Sorry, I've gone just a bit too far. So they'll send a proof of request. Again, they'll receive the notification through the app to, I'm just going to skip through, see if we can find it. Yeah, notification like this to say, can you please send us your proof, credentials, evidence.
Thank you.
That's it. Yeah, that's it, sorry.
And
okay.
The very last step, and I'll just close on that, is the ability to see the booking on the mobile app. And that way the clinician has been onboarded. If you can see my screen. Yeah, so this is, once the clinician has been activated, you're able to, apologies about that. Sorry, this is the screen. It displays requesting a shift directly on the system. Sorry,
okay.
Sorry, looking at the worker directly, ManyHack showing up to approve them on bookings on the employer's hub. I will stop there. Apologies.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's great. Sorry to rush you, but I am conscious of time, especially because I know some people have to, from this next team, have to drop off at exactly 4 o'clock. So that's brilliant. Thank you very much. So Very impressive. Let's move on now to the next team, which is Guy Whitmore and Luke Smith. Talking, the hack team name is Clinical Systems, and it's authentication into clinical systems. And I understand this is...
Yeah, can you hear me, Helen?
Yes, brilliant.
Yes,
Thanks.
hi all. Yeah, so as it says on the tin there, we looked at how we could use these wallets that a lot of you have been focusing on and actually use them for a smooth, seamless process of authentication into a clinical system. Let me just introduce myself. My name's Guy Whitmore, I'm from EMIS, and I'll be handing over to Luke Smith in a minute, who's going to do a live demo of the code from the hack. Sorry, my screen's frozen, hang on. Right, so Andrew mentioned it in the introduction. We focused on a primary care scenario, and this was a locum GP. This is a GP who works across several different practices. Potentially those practices could be using different systems. And he has a wallet that is already populated with his credentials. We wanted to show how we could take that wallet and use it for authentication and log them into one of our systems. This piece of work was a joint piece of work. It was obviously EMIS Health, from which Luke and I are from. But also I'd like to call out to Condatis. We had to ask them to do a change yesterday, and they got that through the pipeline in lightning speed, so big call out to them. And also Hamid as well inputted to us, who ran the Masterclass 5 around the Nexus product. I've listed the people involved there. The vision, I'm sorry, I'm going quick because I'm conscious of time. The vision here is ultimately what we want to do is give the practice manager the confidence that she doesn't need to check things like, are they licensed to practice with the GMC registration? They've got the educational qualifications that they claim, and their DBS checks are up to date. So this is ultimately where we want to get to. And this is certainly in terms of GMC registrations is something we hear a lot from our GP practices as being a key thing and takes a lot of effort and manual work for them. That's the scene. That was the sort of the target of the hack. I'm now going to hand you over to Luke, who's going to talk you through a flow diagram to tell you what he's going to then demonstrate.
Hi all. Yeah, so very similar to the first presentation, except we've used Condatis that's hard to say, OIDC bridge. So what we're doing is OIDC Federation. Condatis have kindly issued me some credentials into my wallet that we're using. One of the attributes in that credential is an email address. So we're using their OIDC bridge and asking for a scope of email address. And then what happens is they eventually issue us a token back once the proofs have been provided from the wallet, which I'll demo to you in a second. We then use that email address to match to a user in our system. And if we don't have a match, we will just in time register that user and allow them then to authenticate into our system. Our existing systems, you're going to see it's going to pop up for MFA. That's actually coming from our system, not from the Condatis piece, just so there's no confusion there. So if I share my screen, I'll give you a quick demo of what we've managed to achieve. Could someone let me know if you can see that?
Yeah, got it.
Cool, move that out of the way. So
1 minute left.
Okay, I'll be quick. So this is our prototype for our new system that we've been working on. So you could do a standard login here, but we have got this new Condatis button. So then that will call out to the OIDC bridge and we'll get the QR code, which as you'll see in a second, I can scan. And then you'll see I'll get a request to allow access to the credential, which you can see there. And it's asking for my email address. You'll see the web page on the left in a second, refresh. That's going to ask for MFA, as I said a second ago. If you give me a second to grab an MFA code. That should now log us in and redirect us into our prototype clinical system. And that's our demonstration.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's great.
Thanks.
Okay, so the next people are site kit applications. We've got Corinna Diamond and Simon Jackson. Are you ready to share?
Yeah, hi.
The timer, okay.
Can everyone hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Hi everyone, I'm Corinna Diamond. I work for Site Kit Applications as a product owner. We are working on the collaborative bank use case, specifically the beginning of the journey. So joining the collaborative bank and applying for a shift. Our colleagues at Condatis will be following us on and onboarding a doctor at the organisation and completing a shift. So you can see our team here. I'll be handing over to Simon in a second. We have got a number of benefits here. The main ones kind of being reducing dependency on agency staff and associated costs, saving time and money, and making doctors more likely to apply for shifts in other organisations. So we've got a diagram here, which essentially Simon's going to walk us through now, and our two users, which is Manuel, who is a consultant at Blackpool Teaching Hospital, who's using the collaborative bank to pick up extra shifts in his area. Brenda, who is at East Lancs Teaching Hospital, and her role is a shift manager, and she's using the bank to find more doctors to fill the shifts in her hospital. So I will hand over to Simon to show us how it's going to look.
You might be on mute.
Right, I am on mute. Yes, exactly. Right. So here we are. Here is we've mocked up our collaborative bank, and we have. You can see on my view of the wallet, we've got a pre-existing substantial employer credential, which we already have in existence. So here's a substantive employee. He's going to log into the collaborative bank here, and the collaborative bank wants to connect with us here. This is the first time of doing it, so the first thing he's going to be asked to do is, okay, please share with us your substantive employer credentials. Here are they, showing my consultant. It's an aggregation of other information, who my normal employer is, who the occupational health contact, etc. is, national insurance details, GMC registration, all of that. So I'm going to send that through to my collaborative bank. Here we are. So Manuel has shared his credentials. And then here's Manuel in his profile. This is great. He's going to look, he's a hematologist. And so we'll look for available shifts. Here's one, looks interesting to me. I'm going to apply for this. So Manuel has applied and is sitting, waiting. Meanwhile, Brenda, who is the shift manager, has logged in to see how she's doing on filling those shifts. Here's one that looks interesting to me. For this shift, I've got 3 applicants. Who's this first one? Here's Manuel. He looks like the guy we want. So she's going to approve this candidate. And then as a result of approving that, Manuel now gets in his wallet an assignment credential that tells him where the job is. There's some position ID information there that is going to be used later to assign his credentials to access systems. So he's going to accept that.
1 minute.
And there's him ready to receive that. Right, I'm going to stop sharing, hand back to you, Corinna.
You're on mute, Corinna.
Karina, are you mute?
Yes, I am. Essentially, our last slide is the finish of the demo, so you're welcome to have a look at that afterwards.
Okay, great, fantastic. All right, thank you for that, guys. And the next team, the next one is the Condatis and Identity Experts with David Manning and Mikko Vuorinen. Please, are you ready to share?
Yep, with a bit of luck, you can now see my screen. So, introduce myself. My name is David Manning. I am an architect with Condatis. We're doing the second half of the collaborative bank use case, picking up where the previous one left off. So this is where the doctor has been assigned to a shift and is going to be pre-provisioned, work through the shift, and then end the shift and get some evidence. So we worked with partners at Identity Experts for doing pre-provisioning. We've also got BDS who can do an alternate provisioning version and use the Evernham stack. So the benefits are the cost and time saving in the auto provisioning step, the security that comes through use of verifiable credentials, and the avoidance of a complex network and being able to use a decentralized system. Quite a complex diagram, which I'm not going to go through, but it effectively shows the 3 stages that Mikko is going to take us through. So the pre-provisioning following the joining instructions, turning up for the shift and actually accessing the services that are needed. And then at the end, finishing the shift and being issued with a credential as evidence of the shift having been worked. So Identity Experts did the pre-provisioning and auto pre-provisioning for us. I'll leave the slide so you can have a look at it. BDS have an alternate way of achieving the same thing. So it's about automating the provisioning into back-end systems so the access rates are available through whatever means. So I'll now throw over to Mikko, who'll do the live presentation of that.
Okay, are you on mute, Mikko?
Yeah, it took a while to find that mute button. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So yes, so at this point, the Manuel has received an email with the details from the shift and links to the onboarding, and then at the end of the shift to receive the shift and credentials. So I'll start with the onboarding. So this will take him to the access provisioning application at the East Lancs. So I'll use my wallet, which has all the shift credentials ready, and scan that QR code. And they'll ask me to make a connection with that shift management. I'll accept that. Next, the application will ask some details about the shift. So this will be a combination of the shift details and then some basic details from my substantive employer credential as well. And this includes the position ID, which is what is used to map this shift to any necessary permissions that they will need. So when I share that with the system, they will receive it and in the background now do the provisioning with in our version with the Identity Experts provisioning automated system. And I will get a system access credential, which includes an identifier which will be linked to the permissions. So I'll accept that. And that will be my onboarding complete. So next I can quickly show the what it would look like if I go to a relying party application, which is some sort of system that requires me to sign in. So I go there, use the login button, and this is in the background using the OIDC bridge. with some additional work to get the permissions that were assigned to me by the identity experts. So I will connect to the bridge application, and it will ask me to verify my access. So I will need that system access, and I'll share that, and it will take me back to the hospital system with some details of my permissions here. So that's all. All I need to do next is go back to my email here and click on the end shift. So once I'm completed my shift, I go to this provisioning application again. So I'll scan that code. I'm already connected to the application, but this time they will ask for details about the shift that I've completed. So I'll share those details. This time in the background, all the deprovisioning will happen. So my account will be deleted and I won't have any access to the systems anymore. And finally, I will get a shift completion credential. So this can be used as a proof that I have completed this shift at this hospital with whatever details. And that's the demo complete. Back to you, David.
That's great.
So hopefully you can hear me again. Basically, a couple of lessons learned. We need to tie the assignment credential to the employment credential just to make sure the same person was turning up and hadn't had their credential revoked. And presenting the assignment credential, we need to make sure that all the attributes come from the same credential, because the doctor is liable to have multiple credentials in their wallet. And we want them to present a single set relating to that shift. We do think there's going to be a proliferation of credentials, particularly as the shift assignment credential and the system access credential will only be associated with one shift. So it's going to be important to have some decent housekeeping in the wallet, whether that's archival or just some instructions to delete things if they're no longer valid. Challenges were making sure we understood the rules for pre-provisioning, understanding the existing start and end of shift processes. At the moment, we've triggered the shift end completion by the doctor, which probably isn't what would happen. But we have issued this end of shift credential as something, evidence of the shift worked, which might link in with something like the doctors in training, so some evidence that they can use downstream. Obviously, we've only done the happy path, so exception cases would take longer. And what we'd like to do is work further, integrate with different aligned party applications, understand better the start and end processes to make those a little bit better, and then potentially find out the use for this evidence of shift worked credential downstream. And that's it.
That's great. Thank you. You're actually 1 minute short of your 10 minutes, which you requested. So thank you very much. Apologies to Corinna Diamond and Simon Jackson. I cut you a little bit short. I'd forgotten you'd requested a bit extra. So apologies there. So we are back more or less on schedule. Jonathan Telfer, I think you're going to do a piece on collaborative bank section 5. Are you ready to
yes,
go?
I am.
Wonderful.
Can you hear me okay and see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
cool. So snappy title, getting the order right, so important. Now then, let's move this on. So what I was looking at, I'm from NHS Digital. We've got NHS Identity and CIS with around 800,000 accounts in them. So what can we do for the clinicians when they're moving between employers so they're not having to re-verify their identity, particularly in the case where we don't have, Passport Office and DVLA yet hooked up onto the system ready to go? And can we reuse that identity also to log into applications? It's not very specific to any use case, but really looking at eliminating that burden of having people having to come in continually and bring their documentation in to every hospital or trust that they walk into. That doesn't go with things. So I'm doing my thing through the beauty of screenshots. So I come into the NHS, I'm brand new, and I go and see the lovely registration authority who verifies all my docs the first time I go in. And they create an account on NHS Identity. So that's all established process. At that point, we can say to the new joiner, hey, we could offer you this lovely credential. So we go and connect to the wallet. And we issue this very lightweight credential, which just tells them my name, the level that I've assured, the RA's assured their identity to, so that's a standards thing, and the date of birth. And the joiner accepts that, and they go on their merry way with not much left to do. And then they move and they go somewhere else. So the new employer says, I need to verify your identity. So the mover at that point says, well, I can approve your credential access because I've got this gorgeous thing from NHS Identity that will tell you I've already been verified down the road by another RA. So he says to his wallet, yep, go and give those guys that access to the credential. Now at that point, I used the bridge because I was really interested in the OIDC bridge and what that could do to let people who already kind of spoke OpenID Connect access into the system to get that. So I blatantly used East Lancashire as the example for there. So they pop up their QR code, says, hey, I want to see this thing, and they get an OIDC identity token. So something that you might be more familiar with than dealing with the wallet, and that gives them access to just these items of scope. They didn't need the date of birth, so they didn't get that. And in that, they've got our NHS Identity ID. So this is, if you like, our consistent national identifier, the thing we know you as for national systems. So potentially you could get into SCRA, the Summer Care Record application through that, or we could start to look at what it would mean for an OpenID Connect application in the local environment, start trusting that identity rather than necessarily hooking up direct into NHS ID. So in terms of what we discovered, actually when we stop and think about some of the stuff, crypto, blockchain, all that good stuff, it kind of starts to seem a bit kind of overcomplicated, perhaps over-engineered. I actually found when I started working with the API, just doing definition of credentials was really simple. Issuing them once I got over the errors in my own code was fine, and consuming them was great too. So it's actually, in practice, it's actually super simple. The credential itself didn't have to have a ton of attributes to be useful across a couple of use cases, and coming to it from a user perspective using Connect Me in the wallet, it all seemed fairly straightforward, and it was all worked the same no matter whose credentials I was consuming, so I like that. Challenges, yeah, the privacy claims are kind of interesting. It does feel a bit like, you know, we kind of say federated identity. Do you really want to trust Facebook and Google and all of those guys? But now it feels like we're kind of saying, well, yeah, but now I've got to trust Evanim and Microsoft and some of their middleware and wallet agent providers. So it feels like we've shifted a need for trust rather than kind of enabled this entirely kind of trust-free environment. So I think it's something to look at there. Yeah, did blockchain, iron blockchain, 502, my word, we might have been a competing standards world. And I had a little problem with issuing the credentials in my wallet, which left my wallet in a little spinning wheel state that I couldn't get out of without deleting the connection. So that was kind of interesting. And I think the Condatis stuff that they put together for the relying party, that was super easy to use, get custom credentials and map them into scope. So yeah, that was me. It was really, really useful, I think, from my perspective.
Thanks. That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan. Okay, so Phil's just sent out the link to the Slido poll. Please don't vote yet. Please just sort of, you're going to have the chance to vote for 3 teams, but please don't vote until you've.
Okay, is that, do you see?
That's better. That's much better. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, the room name is really just the breakout room we're in. So yeah, there's not too much to that. So really, I mean, we came to this session thinking we were just going to get some education, but actually we decided to hack on the second day after we kind of learned more about it. Where we really fit in to the equation. So we're Orion Health, and where we really fit in is the shared care record, or the LICRA, that a doctor working in one of these care settings might be accessing to access the wider care record. So where we really thought we felt in terms of the use cases were particularly around the doctor in training and the collaboration banks, is that at the very end of the process here, where they they're getting issued their access to clinical systems. So people involved in the hack were the Orion Health team, and also with helpful support from Nicola and Jonathan from NHS Digital. Where we really think the benefit would be in what we did was the administrative time saving of provisioning the user accounts, so making it a lot simpler for the doctors and the care workers to authenticate into and trust into a clinical system. We also did some work around the RBAC, and we were trying to figure that out at the end of the hack, but we didn't quite get to that point yet. But we figured there'll be more centralized RBAC and consistent access granularity amongst different organizations. And we were using the OpenID Connect protocol standard and authenticating against NHS identity. So I'll just pass over to Joss to kind of talk you through the technical elements of what we've been doing really from the beginning of today. Joss?
Joss, I think you might be on mute. Would you be able to cover if Joss?
Connie, are you there?
Yeah.
Do you think
Can you
you
hear
can?
me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I'll try to cover Joss then. Okay, so to implement this hack, we positioned an identity broker. We used ClickLook here in front of our solutions to act as the end user login page. The login page offers the end user the ability to log in via the NHS identity, which will redirect the user browser to the NHS identity login page. So upon successful authentications by NHS identity, it will be redirected users back to our identity broker, aka the ClickLook, which then retrieves the user information from the NHS identity, such as the RBAC roles and email address, and creates the necessary SAML version 2 tokens and launch our and create the user sessions and launch into clinical portal. Yeah. So do you want to show? I can pass back to Ben so that he can show you this little videos.
Yeah, so this is just the video of the login to the using the NHS identity, which pops up the sign-in screen, and then logging through there using the username and password, and then the authentication is done. The email is entered into the account information box, and then when you submit that then does the authentication redirect into the shared care record, which will be the system that you see up here now. So that's the first time we've integrated that way. So really what we've learned during this hack discovery as well, for a start, none of us knew what decentralized identity was. So thanks to everyone who presented the masterclass sessions around that. We also got an understanding of what a collaborative bank meant. So it's been very enlightening from that case. We discovered the wider use cases beyond the clinical system access. I think it was useful to understand the onboarding of the junior of doctors into the doctors in training and get more of a sense of a feel around that, how that process works, and making more sense of how the digital staff passports fit into the NHS digital objectives and priorities, and lots of helpful people in the hack, which we've been asking questions of throughout.
That's my timer.
Thanks, Helen.
All right, that's great. Thank you. Thanks so much. And thank you, Connie, for stepping in so quickly. That's great. Okay, so next up we have the negotiators with David Chadwick. Are you ready, David?
I am indeed. Thank you very much. I just need to share my screen, which I hope this will
so
work.
You all know we've got 3 more after David, and then we're going to be voting. So here we go.
Okay, is that visible to everybody?
It is. Could you put it into present mode, David?
I have done.
Oh, okay. It should pop up in a minute then, maybe. If you click up in the top.
Screen. Sorry?
Could you click up in the top right next to share? It says present. If you click on that. No.
Yeah, I've already done that on the web page in Google Docs on the master deck. So I'm sharing. I've clicked on Google Docs to share. Let me escape out to show you.
Okay.
You've got two screens, David. You might be sharing the other screen because we're still seeing
yeah.
the slide deck.
Ah, right. Okay. Maybe when you do that, it actually uses a different screen. Let's have a look.
Yeah, it should give you some options of which.
Oh, it has. Isn't
window.
that stupid? You know, when you're watching the Google Doc and you put share it, it puts it in a different screen, so you lose the ability to share it. Right, is that
That's it? That's great. Okay, time starting now, David. All right.
I'm only going to take about 3 minutes, I think. So, as Jonathan said about 10 minutes ago, there's lots of different systems, and he mentioned the FEDO2 system and the Microsoft system and Evonim system, and we really want them all to interwork together. So we've got multiple VC systems, and they're all using different crypto algorithms, wallets, and protocols. And what we want is an open source universal verifier. So the verifier can run this universal code that's able to call all the different ecosystems via their APIs and verify whatever the wallet can give it. And if we have one ring to, well, it's one protocol to unite them all, then with a simple handshake between this universal verifier and the user app will determine which ecosystem to use onto that ecosystem. And then the ecosystem itself will transfer the credentials, and you've actually got interworking then between all the different wallets and the verifier. So that's the idea. And the people that are working on this during the Hackathon, Condatis, Verifiable Credentials Limited, and the Site Kit, and we're inviting everyone else, Microsoft, Evonim, etc., to join us. And the benefits will be the relying party will be able to receive and validate credentials from any ecosystem. This is our protocol flow. So there's a request access, which might be to log on to the system, or it might be to participate in or to say I want to join your club or whatever. It doesn't matter. That is outside the protocol flow. Where the protocol flow is that the relying party with its universal verifier will say, these are all the systems I support with the different cryptography and the different policy formats. The wallet will say, well, this is the one I can choose out of the ones you've got. Those choices will go back. Then the universal verifier will switch down into the actual ecosystem. The ecosystem will do its own business in its own specific way. So, send the verifiable credentials, and the verifier will get them. And then an OK will go back and the user will get access. So what are we seeing from this? Well, interestingly, when we started this hack, we didn't know, but there were several people all had similar viewpoints, which was really nice. We all saw that we needed something like this. So we've got together and we've drawn up this spec, and we now want to take it to the standards organization to get that protocol standardized, our W3C or ITF. And the only tools we needed were brains and word processing tools in the hack. We didn't need any software in order to design what we did. And that's the end of my presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. That's great. All right. So we're getting close in, just a couple more now. 3 more. We've got Maggie's Makeshift Hackers next. Ian Singleton, are you there?
I am, thank you. Right.
Wonderful.
I can share my screen properly.
Let's see.
Oh, he's right. He's a bit confused, isn't it? Share. Is that right?
It's not in present mode, but we'll survive. It'd be better in present mode. We'll be able to see it a bit more clearly.
When you go into present mode,
that's great.
Well, that's great, yeah.
Yeah, hey, I'm one up. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So your time starting.
Okay, I'm Ian Singleton representing Maggie's Makeshift Hackers. Margaret is with us, so just quick wave to Maggie. This is all about volunteer passports. Essentially, this is about using the same passport to access volunteer opportunities placements across many organisations. So this is going to save hassle for the citizens and save some admin work for the volunteer organisations. Appreciate that our interaction diagram's in the wrong format, but basically we've got a volunteer who's going to be interacting with a digital wallet, and we're using VeriSex Freya ID for that, with a manual verification centre and the community organisation that's looking for the volunteer, and that's all through some form of volunteer portal. We've done a user journey because there's a good chance that I'm going to waffle too much and I'll get stopped and run out of time. So that's there if anyone wants to have a look at it. And then we've hacked our demo together using Webflow and video clips. So again, if I make a complete hash of it and anybody's interested, then they can run it themselves. Just on the discovery side, we've discovered that, blimey, there was an awful lot to learn. Spent most of our time listening to people. And then our challenge really is knowing who to work with and who to connect with and which technology to use. So we are unashamedly using this hackathon to advertise that we're trying to do a proof of concept. And if anybody is interested or knows that they can add value, then please contact us. So I'm going to go on to the demo, but I've got that on a different screen. So how do I share that? Oh, how do I stop sharing? Exit. Okay, switch to that. Am I still sharing that? Can you see that, or have I got to share again?
Yeah,
I still see that.
Be a hero.
Be a hero. Be a hero. Marvelous. Okay, so I'm away. How much time have I got left? I'll whiz.
You have
so this is
2 minutes.
I'm a volunteer. I'm looking for a placement. I'm interested in being an advocate. This is the volunteer portal. I choose the advocate. I'm interested in that role. I can apply for that role, but it shows me that I need a digital wallet. I've not got that. It helpfully tells me I can download it from the App Store. I download it from the App Store, and here's one I prepared earlier. Once I've got that downloaded, to do my identity, I am scanning my passport. That apparently is getting me some sort of code that's going to unlock the NFC ability. So I exit that quickly, and then that allows me to, I'm never going to get through this in time, am I? That allows me then to use the NFC on the UK passport. So I'm just using my phone to download all the details. Those details are then going to be sent to the UK passport check-in service. So I've done that. Let's assume that that was all okay. I then have a passport now. I can scan that QR code, but it notices that I haven't got a DBS. We haven't got that digital at the moment. So I'm asked to choose a verification center. I'm going to go with Hyndburn. I'm now going to confirm through the app that I can pass my details to Hyndburn. So here's me scanning the QR code. It's then going to ask me user consent to give permission. I'm going to say, yeah, that's fair enough. I'm going to approve that. Face ID to prove that. And that's that one done. Exit that one. Back to here. I've now been passed the details into the Hyndburn Center, which is using software called Better Impact. They've used the API. They've got access to Marco there. They're going to do the DBS check. They're then going to verify that, which is going to write details back into the attribute center. I can now apply for the role because I've had my DBS check done. Here's me doing that. I'm now going to give permission to the person in Blackburn who applied for this advocate role to give my email address. So my email address is going to appear up here. It's going to share the email address. I'm giving permission to pass my email address to the Blackburn Centre. So, sorry, I didn't put that in full screen. Kill that one. And I think that comes back to it. So I'm now at the Blackburn Centre. My email address has been passed to them.
That's time. Yeah.
And when I arrive, I can do a peer-to-peer check on my digital passport to say you're a valid a volunteer. There you go.
Yay! Wonderful. Thank you. That was very fast. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. That's great. Right. What have we got next? Thank you, Ian. The next one is Medentials with Phil Graham and Emlyn Jones.
Hi, Helen.
Phil.
Well, I'm hoping, I was just standing if Emlyn couldn't do it. It's to Emlyn.
Is Emlyn here?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see your screen. Are you going to share your screen?
I hope to, that's for sure. You got me?
No, Emily, we've still got Ian.
Yeah, I can't see yet.
Previous one needs to stop sharing.
I'm sharing this.
Could you, Ian, could you stop sharing?
I would if I could. Where's that?
I don't know. There should be a stop share. There should be a little red button up at the top or at the bottom which says you are sharing your screen, and then stop share to the right.
Yeah, this has let me down, hasn't it? I can't find anything. I can see a green band.
Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, Helen, you should be able to override, I think, and stop any other screen.
I'm not the host at the moment.
Ah.
Phil, are you able to override?
I'm trying. I've just tried to share my screen, and then hang on. Right, yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's my. Everything's my fault.
And then do you want to try again? Thanks. Sorry, Ian, you've put on the
Here we
spot there.
There's
That's great. Thank you. Okay, time starts.
So I'm going to start this by saying that it's never a good idea to ignore Phil Graham, but I did ignore Phil Graham at the start of the hack. And what I've actually looked at is using the verified credentials platform to verify data, specifically medication records held in a patient held app. All the code for my hack is out on GitHub if anyone wants to have a look. So the idea is that we can issue a prescription as a verified credential. So the patient can accept that prescription into their app. So I've used the Connect Me wallet, but in theory that app could be any patient held app. So then the patient can hold a list of medications in their app, and anyone sharing that or viewing that data can tell or be assured that that data has come from an accredited organization, i.e. you can tell the difference between which data in the PHR has come from the NHS, for example, and what data has been entered specifically by the patient. You can also use it to build a kind of reconciled list of medications. So you can see here on the right, that's the patient holding that specific medication, and then they can view the specific medication. So that the flow is the same as the verified credentials for identity. The connect with patient is the kind of clinic check-in or whatever you call it. The issue of the prescription is the issue of the credentials. The collect prescription is essentially the patient accepting the prescription. So ideally they would accept the prescription at the point of collecting the actual items. And then obviously they can share the medication list. So I'm going to try and share some screenshots. Hopefully you can see that. So as you can tell, I'm not a UX designer, but this is kind of a mock-up of the flow. So this app does actually run. You can see the URL up there if anyone wants to go and give it a go. So I check in the patient, you get the QR code as you'd expect. The patient in their PHR app can accept the connection. Then in the clinical app, the prescriber can enter the details of the medication they wish to prescribe. So the schema I've put up onto the Sovereign chain broadly matches the Care Connect FHIR dose syntax. So these are kind of fairly standardized items. So there's the prescription being offered to the patient where they can accept. There it is after they've accepted it. There's a view of the details of the credential or the prescription they've got. And then when somebody else within the NHS wants to see that medication, then they can request that the patient send it, and they can view it in the app. So that is pretty much me. So then just to go back to my original slides. So the things that I've kind of learned. So I think quite rightly, the kind of verifiable credentials is designed to share a minimum amount of data, which is kind of the opposite of what I'm trying to do here. Apps are designed deliberately to share a minimum amount of data. I think also a flow around potentially being able to pass a credential to a third party first. So the ideal flow for that prescription would be GP to pharmacy and then pharmacy to patient. So being able to do that while maintaining the chain of trust would be really useful. And then just, I think, to develop it further, I think there's possibly potential for verifying any kind of data that's held in a PHR, essentially to ensure the provenance of that data. So that is me. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Almost a minute short as well, so that's very good. We're running pretty much to time now.
You've got it. This isn't necessarily for staff. It can be used for patients as well.
Thanks, Phil. That's good to know. So the last one is Open Mind Identity with Will Abramson. Are you there, Will? And are you ready to share your screen?
I'll be pretty fast, actually. I didn't figure out how to do a good demo of this. So, I mean, this is really just a tutorial, or like I call it like a playground. So this is more for developers than for like actually.
That's fine. Could you put it in present mode? Sorry, Will, to be able to
well, I mean, I'm not going to be on here very long. I didn't create very many slides.
Okay.
If you want to go to the repo, you can go here. So like we looked at this flow, like our goal was really, okay, how do we help people in this hack create things and kind of create this flow? And like my experience from previous hacks has been, it's really hard to get these credentials out there into people's wallets and get them, you know, moving around, like the real credentials, because I know there are already some predefined, at least so on the Hyperledger stack. So in our repo, like so it's just in this folder. There's like a Docker Compose file. So if you use Docker Compose, then you don't need to know about it, but it basically, you know, spins up all of these entities in that flow diagram, right? So we have like an identity verification service, we have a medical school, GMC, HEE, lead employer, and they all have a notebook that you can go to, a notebook series, right? It starts like, it's kind of like a tutorial series, you know, you can go through here, you play the doctor, so you can download the app. As long as you're on the staging net, you'll be able to run through here, issue the credential definitions to the ledger, you know, create an invitation, scan that QR code yourself, you know, make sure you've got an active connection with your doctor, populate the passport, and then issue the credential, you know, and then you move on. Okay, now your doctor's got a passport, you can go to the medical school. It's a pretty similar flow, right? Like we have them all. So, you know, the medical school, again, it's pretty similar apart from, you know, when you made the connection, we verify some details from that passport information and use those details to, you know, populate the next credential. So making sure that, you know, we're bringing in verified data and pushing it back out kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, the flow is all there actually. So our goal really was not to, this was like supposed to be like the baseline, and then we were hoping that other people would be hacking in this thread and you know, we could at least get the credentials out there so people could have them to just focus on like one stack. We also ideally would have liked to get like a front end developed for one of these. So this is like the under the hood code that makes all these pieces work. And then, you know, somebody could come along and say, hey, I just want to build a lead employer. I don't really care about all these other pieces, but, you know, for me to test my lead employer front end code and make sure it's real, I need to have these credentials in the system. So that's kind of what we were going for, just to make sure, you know, we can actually get all these credentials out there and kind of get some real data moving around rather than having to like hack it. Yeah, so I mean, if you're a developer and you use Python, then this might be interesting for you to check out.
That's great, thanks, Will. We're going to hop on to Slido and we'll have a quick vote. So I'm going to share my screen now. If I can. Here we go. Okay, so if you go to slido.com and put in Shack 2020, so Staff Hack 2020, and we'll start the first poll. So I'd like you to vote now for which 3 hack projects have impressed you most. Now, if you go on, you should be able to scroll down and see all of the hacks as they were. And just vote for your 3 favorite hacks that you've seen this afternoon. Everybody could just take a moment and vote. That would be great. Democracy in action. As we mentioned before, we have had some prizes. We do have some prizes for the winning team, donated by Amazon Web Services. So thank you if you were present. We've got them and we're ready to send them out to the winning team. Very generous of you. We've got some Echo Auto, so the Echo device to go in your cars, which I'm sure is great if you're struggling with using hands-free. Someone's saying they still treasure their pink socks as a previous prize. Yes, we do miss the pink socks. They're very hard to come by nowadays. Okay, so I'll wait until 80 people have voted. We've got 76 votes in. And then we'll decide on the winner. So get voting. 2 more people. Come on, if you haven't voted. 1 more. Oh, I think we know who it is. 1 more vote. Yay, okay, so that's the first vote. And Condatis and identity experts, David Manning and Mikko Vuorinen, you are the winning team. Round of applause. It's so weird when everyone's on mute, but well done. That's great work, guys. Well
We
done.
should all do reactions. We'll put a clap on the reactions.
Yes, yes, show your reactions, that's great. And then the next poll is, can you use 1 word to describe how you found this event? Now, we haven't completely finished, so we'll come back to this, but have a think about it as we continue. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing now, and we'll come back to this at the very end, okay?